Hello there. So, you want to know the history of these lands? Well, good thing you found me, Rothya, the greatest historian of them all. Or at least I think. The world of Vaalnarmn. It's not the deepest of the ones I've visited, but it does have its intricacies. Vaalnarmn has existed for a few thousand years in your measurement of time, though only the last 100 or so of efficacy. It is made up of 4 continents. The first of those, being the most prosperous, is Valstok. The largest continent has beings of all kind: elves, min, orc, goblin. You name it, it's found here. But with each place that has this many, there's certain to be problems. War has ravaged these lands for as long as it's been in existence, really. Though, with the ravaging, the nature seems to grow so fast it doesn't really matter. You couldn't tell that there was war there yesterday because nature takes it back over before you can carry your dead off the battlefield. Next up, we move on to Yohara, a rich and bountiful land. Though it is beautiful, nature does not act the same way it does on Valstok. It's mostly flat. Excuse me. This soup I had today was disgusting. It is a luscious landscape, though flat, with a single lowly mountain. And I say mountain, but it's more of a big hill, as it's not rocky because it's, a lush land. The elf people live there, and they rule Yohara. They do not take kindly to visitors. Though there are some others that live there. Dwarf and halflings have made their home on the western side, where the elves live on the eastern side in the hills. The dwarves and halflings made their home before elves took power, but now that the elves have established themselves, dwarves and halflings avoid them at all costs. Moving down the world, we come to Gilnar. Gilnar, the poorest of continents. But it has been established much longer than the others, as life seems to have started here. Like Valstok, it has all meanings of life there. However, the towns are poor, the people are broken, there's war that doesn't get taken back over by nature. It seems as if they're not meant to be happy, though life itself seems to find hope, no matter what. It was a common place there to find humans interacting with people, though it seems to have grown down a little bit over the last few years. It is also the only one with a smaller island to the side of it, or rather below it, though no one goes there. The name of the island is Dialar. It's not spelled as you'd think it either. No one seems to know or even be brave enough to go there, but there is a dock that can be viewed on the western shore from one of the little sea towns on Gilnar, and nobody's ever seen anyone there, so they don't know how the dock got there. Speaking of not knowing about anything, we come to the last continent, and the most desolate of all of them is going to be Beamstar. Beamstar is unknown. Historians such as I have not even known of the place. No one seems to go there. The land is dark and gravelly and rocky, and the air there seems to be hot as the water in your flasks will boil away, though your body seems completely fine. It is a dark place that no one seems to go to. It is thought to be the birthplace of dragons, though no one can confirm this as dragons haven't been seen in a couple hundred years, so who knows? These lands were established and have been for a while now. Their current time, measured in your yearly calendar, would be 1342 AD. Now, AD is not what you are used to. AD stands for after distillation. You see, as I mentioned before, dragons were once a regular sighting in the world of Vaalnarmn, and they used to roam wild and free, you see, as people just viewed them as another animal trying to live and be alive. However, as people started to build up their cities and gather resources. Dragon attacks became more common as farms full of sheep and horses became easy targets for food, and some shelter was found in the mountains where people used to live. The dragons got stronger and more daring. Now, the Year of Desolation comes about because the people got too tired of these dragons attacking them, and they led a party made of the biggest armies you could find on any of the lands, all 4 lands attributed to this attack on the dragons. They were led by 4 stunning individuals, the first of which was Amar, the greatest swordsman the world has ever seen. Though he was not undefeated, the battles he did lose definitely taught him a lesson, and he would pass that lesson on to dragons, as he slayed at least 3 himself, as it was told by the ones who were there. The next of which was Vaalnarmn. Vaalnarmn was a very interesting individual, as you see he was born of dwarves, or at least of dwarven parents. But he fled his home and found shelter with a family of elves. Now, as I said before, after the elves took power of their land, the dwarves did not mingle well. So the fact that a dwarf was raised by elves is something of a peculiar event in and of itself. Though it did not turn out, and I should say, it did not turn out great for Vaalnarmn, as Vaalnarmn became the greatest archer in all the lands, or at least of his time. He could scurry about because of his small stature, and unlike the dwarves of his time, he was not a larger dwarf. Vaalnarmn was, of elven raising, and so he was much more nimble and fast, and could put a quiver of arrows where they were most deadly before you even knew he was in the room. But on the other hand of that, he was not the greatest of leaders. Therefore, he much more preferred scurrying around the battlefield and taking opponents out on his own rather than with a team. Next up, we have Hekal. Not much was known of Hekal. He grew up in the mountains of Gilnar. He was much more of a lumberjack than most would think, but he was still a great, great warrior. In fact, none who faced him left the battlefield in one piece. He carried a great big axe, and I'm not talking just like a 2-handed axe. No, this axe was the height of a man and the width of a child. You could eat a family-sized dinner off of this man's axe. No armor. He preferred the freedom of mobility to having any kind of protection, but it didn't matter, because any who got near him would fall quickly. Like Vaalnarmn, he was not much of a team fighter. However, his brutality, they hoped, would lend to some frightening of the smaller dragons out there. He was quite a big man as well. Some say stood 9 feet, others say 10, though it is not for sure known, as he died not long after Desolation. The last was Vaalnarmn. Now, Vaalnarmn was another great warrior, and he was even fine a leader, I think is why they took him along. Having 4 lands of armies to command, it was good to have at least 2 leaders, Amar being one and Vaalnarmn being the other. He was second only to Vaalnarmn in his archery, though many believe he was the best that had ever been. He grew up in Gilnar in the kingdom of Falar, and was the hand to the king there before their fall. That is a story for a different time, by the way. A simple man, lived simple life, though his archery was suspiciously good. The only reason he fell to number 2 is during an archery competition he missed a shot so simple, or at least for people of their stature, that his fame faded and he kind of slipped away into history until it was time for Desolation. He was a valuable asset to the dragon-slaying party, as his men, the people he led anyway, were quite great, and they did great things whenever they were together. Now, They led all 4 armies of these lands against the biggest roost of dragons and slayed a great sum of them. Now, the stories say that they did this in the desolate land of Bilst. What's the name of it? Bimstar? Sorry, I have many words to keep straight in my head. Bimstar. Though it is not for sure known where this roost of dragons was. They slayed a great number of them, and seeing this, the living dragons left there decided to flee. But in their fleeing, they had wrought destruction amongst all of the lands. The tales go from people that were at the fight, say 5 dragons fled. Now, this is greatly disputed by people of the lands and historians of the world, as 3 have been slain since, and there have not been another sighting of the other 2 dragons in hundreds of years. So the 5 that fled wrought destruction. 3 were slain, with the most recent being in 1021, after desolation, that is. So it took 1,000 years to slay those 3 dragons that are supposedly have left. I, for one, believe there are still 2 dragons left, though, like I said, they have not been seen in hundreds of years, as it is 1342, and the year of the last one was 1021. So, there you have it. A brief history, abridged, of the land of Vaalnarmn. I hope this gives you a little insight onto what you're going to see. And I owe you more of a tale, I'm sure, but much more lore awaits you when I meet you. I can't wait to see you, heroes. We'll see you then.